name's Chris James, and I am known professionally as Run Rivers, and I met Barney and Jim 20 years ago now, which makes me feel very old, and they were producing and mixing my debut record when I first got signed many moons ago, and since then we've collaborated every few years or so ever since then on various different projects, and it was amazing to be reintroduced to what Barney's been doing here at the studio at Bluebell Hill Studios. It's been going from strength to strength, and loads of massive artists coming here, which has been amazing for you guys, and it's incredible to see that, having not seen Barney and Jim for a while. So my career since leaving the band has been freelance vocalist for many different DJs and producers, and also creating and producing a lot of my own music for libraries and for music libraries, and also for sync, for TV and film, and more recently getting into scoring, which has been amazing. I've really loved doing that, because I think they're the two sort of main strings to my bow. Is I'll do vocals for producers who want my vocals on there, and I write the lyrics as well. And the other thing, which is sort of the hands on the tool stuff, all this stuff is the writing and producing. So I've enjoyed doing that for many different music libraries over the years, and also had success at sync, songs being used in TV and films and things like that, and that's sort of, I guess, what got me thinking along the lines of that I'd like to do film and TV composition, and also like my heroes. I sort of observed people like Clint Mansell, doing the Darren Aronofsky films, and he used to be in a band, and he wrote these incredible string pieces on a keyboard like that, in his little flat in New York. And seeing stories like that made me think, well, I should have a go at writing some epic music. And with all the software that's available now, you've got amazing libraries from people like Spitfire, and you can just dial it all up on one of these, and you can make pretty epic music just in a computer, and if you've got the right libraries. And then I had the live instruments. I had guitar, because I play guitar. I had a lot of live guitar. I had live bass. I've got bass, and I will work with other musicians if that's required to make it sound as good as it needs to be. So, for example, I work a lot with a violinist who also plays cello, and I'll add real layers to my string samples to make them sound real. And depending on budget, if there was a bigger budget, I would like to record string sections. I've done that in the past, recorded string sections, which is amazing. That's the way to get it sounding the best. But quite often, with the library music or whatever, you're on a much smaller budget, so it's a case of DIY, doing it yourself with libraries, and then adding some layers of real stuff to make it sound more vibrant and have more depth, and also have that humanity which you need. If you just used samples, it would sound very flat, and we don't want that, right? We want the humanity, we want the playing, we want the finger noise, we want the vibrato. So all that stuff's really important. And then adding the real guitars is something that I love doing. I've always played guitar since I was a kid, and very much got into guitars at a young age. My dad encouraged me to play. My dad was obsessed with guitars and spent a lot of his life fiddling around with them, and passed that passion on to me. So that's something that I really enjoy doing as well. And I do enjoy producing music, like producing the whole track rather than just doing the vocals. I enjoy doing vocals and lyrics, but it's not my only passion. I do love composing and writing music, and if it can be cinematic, that's even better. So I had a breakthrough with the film scoring stuff when I was approached to score a documentary film for ITV called Return to Lockerbie with Lorraine Kelly, and it was a real honour to work on that, because it was about the Lockerbie bombing disaster, and it was incredibly serious and upsetting subject, and we all knew, the people working on it, the gravity of the subject. and the fact that all the survivors in the village were in the film talking about their experiences. So it was really serious project. And the director, Leo Burley, is a BAFTA-winning director. He won a BAFTA for the Mo Farah film that he did, and it was amazing to be invited in to work with them and Gordon Mason, the editor. And seeing those guys and the way they worked was really eye-opening for me, and it was an incredible opportunity as a sort of entry into film scoring, to work on something that felt so important for all involved. And the process and Jenny Petterly is also an award-winning producer, exec producer. So that working with that team felt important, and it was important because the film's important. And my job was to take direction from them about what they wanted the music to achieve in each scene, and to respond musically to what was going on. They sent me a rough cut of the film quite early on, and asked me to write music reacting to that. And then they took my cues into the workflow, and they were being positioned within the film, and it was an ongoing process which took about 3 months. So that was fascinating to see how they work, and the Zoom calls were really important, because that's when I'd understand whether I was on the right track, and get the feedback from the director and the editor about whether the music was serving the film correctly. So that was a really amazing project. And I think musically, the way I approached it was to basically play along with the film. So I played along on guitar, I played along on keyboards, and I reacted to what was being said and what was on the film, and that they would be the basis for the foundations for the cues, and then I would finesse the cues over time later. But they wanted to work. They had to work quick. 3 months is quick, as I understand it, and they had to do that because of that's the position they were in. So so I had to really work fast, which I enjoy. I like working fast, and respond to feedback from them. I think mostly it worked. Mostly the cues I'd done worked well and didn't need changing that much. A couple didn't get used, or one or two. Yeah, the one cue that was difficult was because of trying to get the right vibe. It was early in the film, and that's challenging, because the first couple of cues are really important, because that sets the emotional, musical feel for the film. So that opening 10 minutes was crucial to get those cues right. So I remember one took a bit of work, with a bit of back and forth of what exactly are we after, and it went to the exec producer, and everyone was discussing how is this sort of second cue going to introduce the story that they were telling. So yeah, that was an amazing project, and the interesting thing about that was because of the position I was in my life, with that I had to be in different places during that 3 months. Therefore, I ended up mixing it because of budget constraints. I had to mix it myself, which I'm not as good as Barney and Jim at mixing by any means. I wouldn't even attempt to compete with what they can do, but I can fiddle around and mix my own stuff. So that's what I ended up doing on the film because of budget. Because obviously, if I had a big budget, I would have loved to bring them in, but that wasn't there. So I spent a long time mixing on headphones, because we were going to different locations, and you can't just set up speakers in different places and expect it to sound the same, because every room sounds different, right? So the only thing I could trust was my headphones, and at the time I didn't have these wonderful Meze headphones. I had a different set, and it was good, it was workable. But I can see now, having listened to these, I listened to Barney's mix yesterday that he sent me, and on these headphones, and it literally just sounded incredible. It sounded there's such a lot of depth and clarity, and it sounds wide. You can hear all the panning, and you know exactly where everything is. And these would have been a huge asset for mixing that film score, because I was relying on the headphones, and I feel like honestly feel like I could have mixed it better if I'd had these. So it's a shame I didn't, have them at the time. But I'm absolutely so grateful to you guys for hooking us up with these wonderful headphones, because they do sound amazing. And that I can see that I've got other producer friends who rely on headphones as well, because it makes sense, because you know how they're going to sound wherever you are. You might be in a hotel or wherever, and you can still work, on your laptop because it sounds the same as it did when you were working on it at home, So they're hugely important for the way I work, and I'll be, relying on these much more than they sound so much better than my old set. So I'm absolutely over the moon about that, and thank you for hooking it up. I think the influences that I had growing up are not necessarily what I listen to now, because we evolve, don't we? And as I've got older, I listen to a lot more classical music, for example. I listen to a lot of classical music. I listen to jazz. Certain people like Bill Evans is my hero. Like, I absolutely worship his music. It's just so beautiful and just free, and like I like to listen to improvised music. I like to listen to classical music. I like to listen to things that I can't do very well because it inspires me, so I don't listen to much rock and pop at all, to be honest. I just don't ever really listen to it, because it's not because I'm working on that kind of stuff, I suppose you could call it that. I don't want to listen to it for pleasure, because it feels like work, because I'll start analysing, like, oh, why did they choose that bass sound, or why have they put that synth there, and my brain will start crunching what's going on in the song, and that's not a relaxing feeling, because it's just like you might as well be working, if you're analysing a track. So for pleasure I listen to classical music and jazz mostly, and I would recommend Bill Evans to anyone, because it's just absolute magic. And other people, like, I think when I was learning to sing, I know I was worshipping people like Jeff Buckley, Nina Simone, Bjork, big Bjork fan, Tom York from Radiohead, massive fan. There's so many amazing singers out there. I like the crooners and the jazz singers, and I like listening to people who can really sing, people who can hit the notes, people who've got range, people who've got dynamics. That's what I'm looking for from a vocalist. Yeah. Barney sent me the mix yesterday, and I listened to a mix that we're working on together. The vocals sounded incredibly detailed and clear in these headphones, and like I was saying, the stereo image was much better than my old set. I felt like there's, if you threw a long reverb on a sound to create depth, it felt massive, and also the detail, like, as you know from when you're mixing, it's a fine art. You're just changing certain frequencies, and to be able to hear that in detail and judge it correctly is hugely beneficial. And I'm sure that I could have mixed that score better on these, and but better late than never that I've understood that I need a better set of headphones. I think one of the best phrases I heard from my years in the music industry was from Jim Abbas, who said, I remember him saying it, he just said, I just get on with my job. And that really stuck in my head. I was like, that's amazing. I just get on with my job. And that's kind of just what I try and do. It's like, if I'm doing a vocal, I'm trying to do a good job. If I'm playing guitar, I'm trying to do a good job. If I'm playing, whatever it is, if I'm producing a track, I'm just trying to do a good job of it. It's as simple as that, really, isn't it? Yeah, I do have certain patterns of work behaviours. Like, I'll usually feel more creative in the morning, so I'll do lyric writing and vocals earlier in the day, and then afternoon I can go into production and whatever admin tasks I have to do, and get into more sort of, if I have to do editing or something like that, it doesn't really matter what time of day I do that, because I don't need creativity for that, for editing jobs within tracks. So I want the powder dry if I'm going to be creative. I want a fresh energy in the morning where I can really try and throw something at it. And it's pointless doing that when you're tired, because I just don't generally try and do that stuff when I'm tired, because I just don't think it would be that good, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, it's all about the details, isn't it? So, like, I think you pointed out that the cabling's really good. It's really neat. You can detach them easily. You get a little, holder for all your bits, your adapters, and you've got 2 different cable lengths. I also like the fact that it's not coiled. I just find it more comfortable, and it's got a good, it's got good reach, and yeah, it's perfect for tracking vocals or guitar or anything really, because the cable's long enough, and they're really comfortable. When I was mixing the score, I was on headphones for 2 months, so that every day for a long time, and the comfort of these would have been a massive bonus, because if you're doing long shifts of fiddling around with your mix, then comfort, you do want some comfortable headphones, and yeah, these are fantastic. I would highly recommend them. For recording and tracking, the closed back thing is essential, because you don't want spillage. I've had tracks in the past where you can hear the click afterwards, and it just spoils it. You really need the closed back to just stop spillage and record cleanly, and yeah, that's hugely important, and yeah, these are great for that. I wouldn't say that I have any rules in particular about music. I think that I probably do have go-to patterns of getting things done, but with the library music that I've been doing for years, that is, it's smaller budgets, everyone knows that, so there is a sort of a finite amount of time you can spend on those tracks. So yeah, I guess my only thing is that I tend to work fast. Well, I think it seems fast to me, but I'll put the bones of a track together in a day, and then I'll fiddle around with it for a couple of days, and then it's done. And that's how I do like to do. I think I do the broad strokes first. It's like get the chords right, get the structure. I'll do all that first before I do any detail, because the detail stuff takes time, and there's no point doing details if the broad strokes aren't right in the first place. So that's probably the only thing I can identify about my own process. Yeah, I would put these on and listen to Bill Evans for a good hour and absolutely drift away into like jazz genius territory, because he's just next level. So yeah, I would highly recommend listening to the music you love through these wonderful headphones. Why wouldn't you? It's like I think Jim was saying that it's a strange time for people who are passionate about music, because every home that you go into when you're having a party, people are listening through a relatively lo-fi Bluetooth speaker, and that's not the listening experience that I grew up with. My dad had a great hi-fi with really good speakers and all the separates, and like I'm sure yours did, and and those who are passionate about music want to hear it in high fidelity. And it's a shame that Jim said this in his interview that is online, that it's a shame that the norm is these Bluetooth speakers, and it's not as good. We could be having a much better listening experience when we go around to people's houses. It's a shame, but yeah, I mean, if you want to listen to music properly, then yeah, the high res headphones is a great option, or some great speakers, obviously, stating the obvious, but yeah. So the music production retreat that we set up with Barney and Jim and yourself I was talking to Jim for a while about was he interested in sharing his production wisdom in a sort of teaching environment, and it transpired that he wasn't interested in teaching in the way that a lecturer would teach. But the more we spoke, he suggested talking to Barney, and then I came over here and saw all this wonderful stuff you guys have been doing here. And the fact that Barney was up for it was huge, and yourself, so and the big breakthrough moment was the idea that it wouldn't be lecturing, it wouldn't be teaching how a compressor works. It's about people coming together who are passionate about music in a professional studio environment, and working together on enhancing their tracks, and that was the sort of breakthrough where Jim was like, I am interested in that, but he's not interested in giving lectures, I don't think. That's what he said to me anyway. So yeah, you know, it's been and we as you know, we worked hard on the first one, and people seem to really enjoy it. So hopefully it'll continue, and people come back and see us again. Work with us again, I suppose. Work with us again. Yeah.